Morning, everyone, and welcome to another formal meeting of Cabinet taking place on Tuesday, 5th of November 2024. Just wanting to also welcome guests, members of the public that may be watching via the Council's YouTube channel. For those members that may be participating in this Cabinet meeting via the live stream or online, you'll be able to participate in the debates, but you will item or vote if you are not present. The voting just applies to Cabinet members only. If you are wanting to speak to any item, and indeed if you are introducing an item, could you please state clearly your name, your portfolio position, and also, if appropriate, and if you feel like it, the ward that you represent in this glorious London of Newham. And similarly for officers, if you are going to be contributing to any of the debates around your reports, please do introduce yourselves in your role at the council. For those members of the executive or officers who are joining our meeting online, do you kindly raise your hand using the virtual hand symbol on the Zoom dashboard, and I will be asking the clerk to advise me if there is anyone wanting to do that. And then finally, I wanted to make note that we're heading into Remembrance Sunday this coming weekend. And before we conclude today's proceedings, I'll make a few additional comments. We're now going to be moving on to the agenda. Apologies for absence. Joy, may I receive formal apologies for absence that you've taken?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies for absence. And that's about it.
Thank you very much, and also apologies from Councillor Blossom Young. And I also wanted to note apologies from Rachel McCoy, our monitoring officer, and her colleague Mangia is deputising at the Cabinet meeting for the monitoring officer. Thank you very much. Right, so we are just wanting to move on to declarations of interest. Please, across some of these reports coming to this formal meeting of Cabinet. Firstly, there are a number of exempt appendices as it relates to various Cabinet reports. Agenda items 6, 7, 9 and 11 and 14 specifically. In addition to that, note the codes of conduct. Please could you declare any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests that Cabinet member may have on any of the matters that we're going to be discussing this morning and making decisions on. Are there any interests to be declared? That's a silence and that's a no from everyone, including myself. Colleagues, can we just note the minutes of the last meeting of Cabinet held on the 15th of October 2024? Specifically note the decisions of Cabinet made. Can I just invite Cabinet members only to confirm that those are an accurate record of the decisions made at Cabinet? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Sorry, right, I've got Councillor Charlie McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Just I remember from the meeting, there was a correction to be made on the pro forma the library fee. And in the minutes, it says that the Cabinet corporate director, that's it, for resources was going to make those amendments. So I'm just wondering if that had happened.
So can you just clarify which section of the report you fancy it is?
Let me check. On page 17, at the end of near the end of the page from appendix.
Right, so it's got the final paragraph or sentence. The lead member from Finance and Resources requested that the recommendations be amended.
Just above that, the
Above
hit point, yeah. Said that the appropriate text would be added. I just wanted to check that that had been.
Right. Okay, so it's a third bullet point in the penultimate paragraph on the bottom of page 17, Appendix B, page 1 supplementary pack, 15, library review, the text in the additional information box related to children's centres. Corporate Director of Resources said that the appropriate text would be added. Just needed confirmation that that's been or has been done.
That's right, Mayor, yes. So the updated pro formas will be subsequently published and republished as part of the ongoing budget process, and those and other corrections picked up in the minutes here will be dealt with at that stage.
Brilliant.
It's absolutely in train, yes.
Oh, okay, fine. Joy, can we just capture that for the purpose of today's records? Great. I'm gonna go back to cabinet members again, just to confirm that we set out an 8 against agenda item 3 on accurate record of the decisions taken at cabinet on the 15th of October. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Right, thank you very much. Just to move on to 4, on appointments to outside bodies, there's no appointments to outside bodies presently that need to be announced. However, I do want to clarify that in the context of the recent changes that I've made to cabinet arrangements, where I've assigned Councillor Amma Verdi a role with regards to housing services, alongside appointing Councillor Blossom Young. Councillor Amma Verdi still retains his responsibilities for community safety and crime. So can that be noted? Okay. We're going to be now moving to an amendment. Sorry, agenda item 5, which is amendment to the budget proposals. As we take this paper, I would also like to say a few words with regards to this, but I will be inviting Councillor Zulfikar Ali to introduce this paper. And when I invite Conrad Hall, could you kindly also give us a short verbal summary of any material matters as it pertains to the government's first autumn statement speak that we need to note at this meeting of cabinet? And I know that work's underway with regards to further analysis of the autumn statement and implications for Newham Council, as we are still working very hard on the scale of savings that we're going to have to identify for purposes of the budget setting process for 25-26. So in the first instance, Zulfikar, would you kindly introduce agenda item 5?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Zulfikar Ali, Cabinet Lead for Finance and Resources. Chair, as you know, that this administration is committed to working with the recognised trade unions, and that has been the case for many years since we have been in this administration. We are going through a substantial change and transformation program, and in order to make sure that we continue to meet the needs of residents, but as well as the needs of the staff who are our biggest assets, and we need to make sure that they are supported and their rights are protected. And we want to retain good employee-employer relationship and utilize the best practice in that regard. And clearly, we want to invest in our staff. This proposal was included in the options agreed by the Cabinet on 15th of October. However, you may know that the government has published the Employment Rights Bill, offering a new deal and hope for workers in this country. And also in light of the transformation and the change we're embarking upon, it is critical for the trade unions' activities. And on that basis, Chair, I recommend to the Cabinet to withdraw the 120,000 saving proposals which were agreed on the 15th of October. I will say that much more detailed work is underway in order to find additional savings, which will be part of the early January draft budget report. And so without further ado, Chair, I I regret that it was included. Perhaps it should not have been, but the government's publication of Employment Right Bill necessitated a review of that situation. So on that basis, I asked the cabinet to agree to withdraw 120K saving from this draft's facility time.
Okay, thank you very much. Look, I'm going to add a few comments. It shouldn't have come as part of saving proposals, first and foremost. We have had a clear understanding commitment as administration that we support rights agenda generally and specifically in the context of worker rights, where an administration workers' rights in light of the scale of inequity that exists in our borough. Indeed, we were amongst the first local authorities in the country to establish an employment rights unit to support our residents who operate in the grey economy or in the insecure economy. And also given the scale of transformation and change that we're going to be embarking on at the council in response to the financial challenges that we're facing as a council, having healthy and positive relationships with our union staff representatives who represent the hard-working public sector cohort at Newham Council is really important to us. It's a valuable learning lesson, and no doubt as we move forward in furthering our deep relationships with our trade union representatives and galvanising our staff members in our pursuit of the agenda of building a fairer Newham, this minor blip will pass. I think it is also important to reflect that we operate under a new national government, and I know that we're quite used to having to be in opposition to a government because we don't align as an administration with its values, and I'm referencing the previous government, but this is a government now that we are indelibly linked with, and they're doing great stuff as part of rebuilding this country. Workers' rights has been a cornerstone of the Labour movement, and that's something that we should preserve as we pursue our transformative and reformist agenda locally. So thank you very much, Sulphika, for having the grace to forward, and thank you very much, cabinet members and the wider executive in your engagement on this front. I'm going to pass over to Conrad Hall in the first instance, and then Gordon, if you have any comments, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm Conrad Hall, the Corporate Director of Resources and the Statutory Chief Finance Officer for the Council. I've nothing specific to add to the detail of this report, but if it is helpful, Mayor, I can give a brief update on what we know and indeed do not yet know about the budget announcement by the Chancellor last Wednesday and the process for updating members on that, if that would be helpful, Mayor.
Thank you, yes.
So towards the end of this week, or perhaps more realistically at the beginning of next week, I will provide a briefing to all members of the Council on the implications for Newham of the Chancellor's budget last Wednesday. As sort of important advance warning on that, I think it's imperative that I say that there is much at this stage that we do not yet know. So to some extent, what I will be doing is quantifying a sort of possible range of impacts rather than being able to say precisely what it will mean for us. More detail follow in the coming weeks, particularly as we lead up to local government finance settlement. Perhaps if I give two examples of the sort of range of uncertainty, it might help to illustrate the extent of the impact or potential impact, I should say, of that budget for us. So one announcement that has been significantly discussed in the press and elsewhere is the changes to employers' national insurance contributions. Our preliminary analysis, and it's not yet finalised, but we think that the direct cost to the council of that for our own contributions to our own in respect to our own employees will be of the order of some £4.5 million per year. And so if one thinks about the 3-year financial planning period that we're working to from 25-26 to 27-28, that if it were not funded by government would add some £13.5 million to the already substantial savings target. Now, it is at this stage quite uncertain as to government's approach to funding that for local authorities. So, for instance, the London councils, which represent all 33 London boroughs, produced a briefing note that I think has been circulated to all members that indicated quite strongly, I think, their belief that that would be at least partially, if not entirely, funded by central government. Conversely, the Local Government Association, in a briefing note that was also circulated to members, stated quite strongly that urgent clarification of that was needed for local authorities. Going the other way, we know there was an announcement of some £233 million nationally for support for homelessness. Now, we don't know the distribution of that. That won't be announced until the provisional local government finance settlement that I expect at some point in mid-December or so. However, if one assumes that that is distributed in the way that existing grants for homelessness are distributed, and I don't know that, but it's a reasonable starting point for any analysis, Newham's share of that might be as much as, say, perhaps £8 million per year, or grossing it up £24 million sort of benefit for Newham over the 3-year financial planning period. But I emphasise that I do not know how that is going to be distributed, so I've merely, as a starting point to sort of illustrate the potential scale, assume that it will be distributed in the same way as some existing grants in that space. So those two examples, I think, illustrate that the 175 million target that we have published for that 3-year period could, on one hand, increase in respect of national insurance contributions, though that may be partially or wholly funded by central government, and may decrease quite substantially, for example, to around about £150 million, if my assumption on that distribution is correct in respect of homelessness. So those are two obvious and sort of contrasting, if you like, uncertainties in the impact of the budget for Newham. There are several others that, again, we are working through to get what information we can. I will produce a briefing note for all members of the council, certainly no later than early next week, towards the end of this week, if I can manage it. Depends on what information is made available to us, and that will be circulated to all members. I understand that an all-member briefing has been scheduled for the evening of Tuesday of next week, so certainly by then I will provide such information as I can, but again, I must emphasise that there will be some considerable uncertainties. To some extent, what I will be doing is quantifying the range of those uncertainties, providing a definitive picture at that stage. I think that there's a wealth more sort of detail in that, Mayor, but I mean, without going into,
Yeah.
I hope that just sort of illustrates the scale of uncertainty that we're working to, and the likely timescale for being able to provide a substantive update on that. So I'll pause there, but happy to take questions. As I said, we'll be at the all-member briefing next week.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that we don't take questions, only because we'll get into how long is a piece of string and we can ruminate about some statement forever. Gordon, did you want to add anything with regards to this, just in terms of any officer assurance around trade union relations at the council between management and officers?
Thanks, Chair. So Gordon Farr, direct relation of the so I suppose part of my role is to have responsibility for thinking that, the picture that we paint, the context that we're major challenge face, the amount of transformation and change that we're going through, officers and trade unions, it's absolutely essential that we have good employee relations. And I think there's a real practicality around, as well as sufficient officer relations, mainly transformation and change, that we have sufficient trade union capacity to work with us. And at that point, that we're working towards, in relations culture. So I think it speaks for itself. This is one to add.
Super, thank you very much. Colleagues, I'm going to suggest that we just go straight to the recommendations and vote, and this is just for cabinet members only. So recommendations are set out on page number 20. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, cabinet is recommended to agree. 2.1, to remove proposal A15, renegotiate trade union officers from its list of budget options being considered at the present time. 2.2, to note that this will add 120k to the overall budget gap. And just as an aside, as Councillor Zulfikar Ali has stated very clearly, you'll be finding that 120k as part of the savings replacement. And then 2.3, to note the advice of the Corporate Director of Resources, who is our Section 151 officer regarding the Chancellor's budget of the 30th of October 2024, and will be receiving further updates in due course. Cabinet members only, is that agreed?
Agreed, Chair.
That's all agreed. Thanks, Joy, by all of us. Thank you. And now moving to agenda item 6, which is community-led housing, grant of long-held interest in land within Canning Town North. And that's covered off in the cabinet report, big page number 2320. And please, can I just remind members that there are exempt appendices for this item? And should any member wish to raise a matter relating to anything contained in the exempt appendices, I will have to evoke the exclusion of press and public instrument that we have. So over to Councillor Birdie, who is the cabinet member for housing, homelessness and private rented sector, as well as retain portfolio responsibilities for community safety and crime. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Mavedi, cabinet member housing needs, homelessness, private rental sector and community safety and crime. To introduce this paper, this proposal relates to administration's commitment to support community land trust. Just for abbreviation purposes, that's CLT, because I know we discussed. Developments in the borough as part of its policy approach to delivery of genuine and affordable homes that local people can afford, as well as its alignment to community welfare and agenda inclusive growth strategy. CLTs are non-profit organisations that develop and maintain affordable homes, community gardens, civic buildings, pubs, shops and other assets on behalf of the community, putting control of those assets into the hands of local people. The report sets out how the council proposes to lease at nil cost that unused piece of land to E16 Community Land Trust, who will develop a small scheme of affordable homes. E16 CLT will seek planning permission, source development finance, and manage the construction process. The homes will be sold at a price that is affordable to someone on an average income in Newham and kept affordable for future buyers. Community-led housing is about empowering local people to make a difference to the challenges faced in the local areas. The depth and impact of housing crisis means that a wide range of solutions are needed. Community-led housing is a movement that has been growing in popularity and profile across London, and this will be the first such development in Newham. E16 CLT is supported by a well-established community-led housing in London, who work with community groups, councils and housing associations and developers to provide expertise in the delivery of community-led housing. Community-led housing in London is supported by the Mayor of London and GLA. E16 CLT identified a council home site occupied by disused garages. The council has no plans to develop it itself. The initial plan indicates that the site could deliver 9 homes, several of which would be much needed for family-sized homes. By granting a long lease on a small unused piece of council-owned land, we can support this first step in community-led housing in Newham. I'm supported by Bobby online for Director Paul Kitts. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Paul Kitson or Bobby Arthur, anything that you would like to add?
Nothing from me, madam.
Okay, Bobby, can you hear us?
Thank you, Mayor. I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm Bobby Arthur, I'm Head of Housing Strategy and Partnerships for the Council. It's really just to add that I think working with E16 CLT over a number of years has been a really positive experience for me and the officer team working on this project, and witnessing the power of the community that wants to kind of empower itself to make a change, to work with experts in the sector to create a high quality housing scheme and make something that benefits the community in the long term. And this is kind of all out of a small disused garage site that we hold. So the E16 board has a really great range of representatives from the local community, as well as those with residential development experience kind of generally, and then experience successfully delivering community-led housing elsewhere in London, as Councillor Verdi said. So I think for the council, this is the disposal of land at no cost, but it brings back into use land that's not productively used at the moment, and in fact, bears a cost to the council to maintain it safely. It powers the community group that wants to make a difference. It brings 9 new homes to meet housing need that's not currently met, and this is a kind of a greater benefit than disposing of the land for market housing, which we know doesn't meet the housing needs of so many people in Newham, as we've discussed at length elsewhere. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think it's an exciting project and one that, as I say, has some long-term benefits for the community.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to add a couple of comments. Colleagues, this is a really significant and important reflection of delivery that we have made, because as you will be aware, community-led housing and community land trust provision has been an objective of this administration since 2018. It's been an important aspect of our housing plans and thinking across both manifestos as iterated in the council's corporate plan. And I think at a time when we need to source an optimal routes for housing delivery, this is a really excellent achievement. So I just wanted to commend and also the present cabinet lead, but also the previous cabinet member for this area, Councillor Shaban Mohammed. Both site stroke land complexity and also the financials, but just really also to assure we have sought assurances from the E16 Community Land Trust that in light of the houses that will be genuinely affordable for local people, these will be available to people with a clear connection, i.e. proximity within the geography of Newham in particular. So well done everyone, because it's been a bit of a mission to get to this point. Yeah, so I'm really happy. No, I don't sound it, but I am. Right, okay, any questions? Okay, Magdalene.
I don't know if officers or our cabinet leads at the moment can give us an indication of where else this kind of project might be able to go forward within you, and what's the potential across the borough, do you know?
Bobby, I'm going to invite you in, but I'm going to say a few things. In the second manifesto, we have said that we would like to have at least one other community-led housing site identified. It's not straightforward and it is not easy, not least because we've got in parallel a significant mobilisation around unlocking land asset that we own in order to deliver affordable homes for our people, and we are able to achieve delivery and quite significant delivery relative to other local authorities in London through the leveraging of grant from the GLA, which we've been very successful. So work is underway with regards to identifying a second site, but it's not a replacement for the significant scale of housing delivery that we need to achieve in London and in this country. And let's not forget, under the new government, there is an ambitious 1 housing delivery target in a 4-year period. So we're going to need to be the drivers and engines for that. Bobby, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I can quickly add that the report does reference very briefly another property actually that has been identified with the Community Land Trust, which is in Custom House, heart of E16, which is a property that is derelict, is in very poor condition. The council has no current plans to bring that back into use. So the CLT is looking at that. That might well be kind of a community facility. A range of community needs to be met there, rather than specifically for housing, perhaps in the longer term to be redeveloped for housing. But that's the next proposal, and we're working actively with the E16 CLT on that to bring that back into productive use, and again, be a source and a resource, for the local community in Custom House.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, are there any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to just go straight to the recommendations. Nope, right, okay, so colleagues, if you could kindly note the recommendations on big page numbers 24, 25, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to, and then you'll see 2.1, 2.11, 2.12, and 2.2. Just specifically note on 2.11, the land is no longer required for the purposes of housing driven by the council for which it is currently held, and that it should be appropriated to planning purposes to include appropriate steps to complete the appropriation in satisfaction of all legal and regulatory requirements and consideration of any objections. The other element of the recommendations that I wanted to draw your attention to is 2.2, approve the disposal of a 250-year lease in the land to E16 Community Land Trust as set out in the report and exempt Appendix 1. Is that agreed, Cabinet members only?
Agreed.
That's agreed by all of us. Thank you, Joy. Now, we're going to be moving to the next agenda item. Thank you, officer colleagues, as well. We're going to be moving to agenda item 7, which is the assisted living for older adults, Wakeling Court, which has been another site-long discussion and driving forward. So, Councillor Neil Wilson.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, Councillor Neil Wilson, Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care. There is a real need to increase capacity of provision for high quality services and accommodation within our borough, within the borough being the crucial phrase there, vulnerable adults in particular. The number of care home available beds in Newham has reduced by around 40% over the last 2 years. This has led to around half of the residential and nursing beds being sourced outside of the borough, and that's more expensive provision than in-borough provision. Residential provision in particular is becoming extremely hard to source within our borough boundaries. So the council intends to acquire and refurbish this property. We believe it will act as a pioneering location for the Newham Living programme, in which the council does the investment in building, acquiring and transforming. There's 3 stages. Obviously, this is an acquisition of an existing building, but we are moving through the purchase vehicle. Sorry, I can't think of the word. The DPV, the overriding Newham Living programme, to actually make certain that we're also building, acquiring and transforming existing buildings into high quality supported accommodation. This will be a tangible example of how building a fairer Newham is ensuring, building our fairer Newham corporate plan to ensure that our improvement of services for vulnerable adults. This acquisition, unlike going to an open market, which I would argue is both fragmented and ratcheting up costs, not always with quality, this acquisition will allow flexibility of placements for residents that are hard to place and reclaim some degree of control over this local market to which I've referred. The service will be commissioned through the supported accommodation, and there's the phrase dynamic purchase vehicle, I was muddle it up, which was agreed in Cabinet in June 2022, with the Cabinet agreeing the final contract award for provider. We had approval from this Cabinet in April, the acquisition and refurbishment, which was part of a wider strategy. It was progressing as expected. It's taken some time, to which the chair alluded, why it's coming back here, to arrange and complete the various surveys required and finalise inquiries. But both the current owner, which is the Housing Trust of a corporation, London and Quadrant Housing Trust, and the council are in agreement now with the current timescale, as both parties wish to ensure appropriate due diligence. It's 23 units, shared bathrooms. Previous Cabinet model was a split use in the building, with 16 units being for residential care and 7 units for supported living. But the feasibility study brought forward that we needed extensive reconfiguration and modernisation. The more you delve in, the more the fact that you can't just acquire a building, the shell, you need to adapt it for the very real needs of for the vulnerable adults that we're talking about. 24 ensuite units with a number of shared spaces, and we've got more optimal configuration now, allowing the focus of the building to be on specialised supported housing, assisted living for older people with high needs, very expensive packages sometimes in the private sector, rather than a split supported living and residential care. So it's an optimal configuration, and we are having increased income through the housing benefit to support refurbishment, while having additional benefits for the residential outcomes. And as a result, the budget has increased with the new cost built into the financial modelling, but it demonstrates the acquisition remains financially viable. In addition, the scheme is profiled to save the council in excess of 250k per year once it's fully mobilised. And if I just bring in Councillor Mumtaz for just a quick 2 points as well. Introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Councillor Neil Wilson. Mumtaz Khan, Deputy Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care, Adult Social Care. So I'll just add a bit more on the actual property. The property is situated on the corner of Hayley Road and Catherine Road, at the western end of Hayley Road. So Green Street offers a number of basic amenities. Catherine Road with a lot of local shops. The proposal for the property is to be used for socialised supported housing and made available to local residents with high social care and support needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions, colleagues?
Don't know whether officers need to add.
Nothing to add. I'm just happy to answer any questions. Nothing to add otherwise.
Okay, fine. Right, Sulfika, you had.
Just a comment, Chair. Thank you. I do remember this location. It's been ongoing for a long time, so it's good to see that it's coming to some sort of conclusion now. Obviously, it's going to cost a lot more now. Can I ask a question about the contingency? You seem to have a substantial contingency, as mentioned in the report. It could, since we only done the feasibility in April, should there be that level of contingency at this point in time?
I'm going to say, I think that's a question for Simon to add detail.
The valuation and the process and all of the finances have been done by kind of finance colleagues who pull together all of our investment appraisals, and that's the contingency that they've recommended.
Okay.
Sorry, what's the issue?
Just the level of contingency, bearing in mind we only had the feasibility in April. So, it is something that needs to be done. It ought to be part of the work program unless we think there are various market factors which may lead to some degree of uncertainty over the life of the project. That's the only reason I asked that question.
Okay, I'm going to pause you there because I'm going to just remind cabinet colleagues, these types of questions to be clarified ahead of formal meetings of cabinet. And my assumption is, and I have no reason not to believe it's true, that there is a high degree of assurance that that contingency element and amount is appropriate for the nature of the scheme. Yeah? Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Right, are there any other questions? No? All right, colleagues, can we just move to the recommendations as set out on big page number 40? Well, no, 41. So note that the recommendations are covered off 2.1, increase the agreed allocation of capital funds for the acquisition and refurbishment of Wakeling Court from 2.5 million to 4.3 million. 2.2, to delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Adults and Health in consultation with lead member to commence and approve the procurement process for contracts for the refurbishment of the property up to the value of 3.2 million. 2.3, to delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Adults and Health in consultation with the lead member for health and adult social care, etc. So are those recommendations agreed? Yeah, are those agreed?
Agreed.
Members?
Agreed.
Yep, those are all agreed. Just by way of conclusion, the other thing that I would add, please be really clear, contingency budgets are simply contingency budgets. They are not contingency budgets for everyone to have or think happy days and you can spend it. There is going to need to be an assurance provided by corporate directors and cabinet members that projects are delivered in conformity with agreed budgets outside of the contingency elements. Okay, right. Let's move on. Item 8, commissioning intentions, specialist SRH services. Over to you, Neil.
Thank you very much, Chair. So Neil Wilson, Cabinet Lead for Adults and Health. Local authorities are mandated under the terms of the Health and Social Care Act of 2012 to commission sexual and reproductive health, which is in a report abbreviated to SRH. Those SRH services are on behalf of our residents, clearly. In the period of 2014 to 2017, there was a major transformation at a pan-London level. So across London, they were transformed. Contraceptive services and services for the screening and treatment of the sexually transmitted infections were also integrated into this very clear envelope of responsibilities to improve health outcomes for our residents and significant savings. As part of that transformation, our local acute trust, one of the largest, I think the largest in England, the NHS Barts Health Trust, awarded a contract by the Cabinet in July 2017 to reflect that new set of responsibilities on our behalf. That contract for the All East Specialist Service is due to expire and with no further options to extend. So Cabinet is being asked to approve the commissioning intentions set out in this report, specifically the decision to pursue a direct award of contract to Barts Health. This is quite unusual in many respects because I think that Adults and Health demonstrated over the time of this administration that we take the commissioning role and the monitoring of contracts very seriously. It's not just the commissioning role as a contract compliance role, as a quality assurance role. So I want to reassure colleagues that we don't take this sort of moving from the same provider decision lightly. The provision in this report is for the incumbent provider for these statutory services under a direct award procedure, very rarely used, as I say, not very used often at all. And that's a direct award procedure for the provider selection regime under the PSR regulations. The intention is to pursue a 5-year contract with options to extend for up to 3 additional years So it's a 5 + 1 + 1 + 1 with an estimated maximum contract value of 32.9 million over those 8 years, if it were to be the whole 8-year programme. A direct award of contract is deemed appropriate for 3 main reasons. I want to underline this, Chair, in my brief remaining minutes, that the performance of the incumbent provider is satisfactory. There is no significant change to the value of the contract, and there's no significant change to the scope of the service provision. So I commend the report, Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jason or Simon, any additional comments, or Kieran? Have we got Kieran Scott?
No, just myself and Simon.
Okay.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Jason. I think there's just a few things that I'd like to highlight. This is one of the first kind of significant transformations this administration led on. So it's very much from your time leading Newham. And I think it's a really great example of what we're all trying to do. The financial situation is very challenging, and that leads to kind of us having to explore creative options, working with our residents to design services that work for them. We've managed to design an online sexual health service through this period of time, which now serves 30% of all sexual health tests. That saves us money. It saves residents time because they're not having to take half a day off to go to various appointments, and it improves outcomes for residents. Overall, the transformation of sexual health in North East London, led by Newham, has significantly moved things forward at a pace that's rarely seen in the NHS. And again, that has probably saved the council around £1 million in growth over this period of time, but also delivered higher quality services. More people are receiving long-acting reversible contraception, and more people are receiving HIV prevention drugs than ever before. So I think it's a really good example of transformation using digital and non-digital, designing services with residents, and it's very much now onto the next phase of that work.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, colleagues? Councillor Murad Patel.
Thank you, Chair. I commend this report and the team as well, providing much needed and essential services to residents in Newham, and of course amplifying some of the essential services they actually provide. I was just wondering how this fits into the 50 steps to a healthier Newham.
Yeah. Very good. So I'll take that first and then hand over to officers. I mean, clearly, the Health and Wellbeing Board is the owner of the 50-step strategy. We're clearly working towards a greater integration. I think this is a really good example of Newham being a lead provider, as Simon has said, and it's highlighted in the report. It's not just about tackling inequalities, because there's inequalities because of stigmatization amongst certain communities. If I just quickly reference, I think I did last when another report came in, the underrepresentation of Black African population, and the ability for women to actually get the LAC procedures, the stigmatization in certain communities. We, throughout the 50 steps, have said that we are going to be measured by outcomes and make certain it's all through the lens of tackling some of those long-standing inequalities about access to services. So I think this is a really good example of how we can work with Berks Health and be the lead provider borough to make certain the other North East London boroughs are also, because similar demographics, different challenges, but same issues are often, sadly, about stigmatization, about people wanting to remain as anonymous as possible, hence the online offer, and also that people don't have to go to their nearest provider through a GP if they don't have that degree of trust. There's a whole series of issues there, but I want to reassure this Cabinet and the wider people watching that this is certainly consistent and I think a coherent approach to dealing with some of these long-standing inequalities. I think I've said in other places that so long HIV or sexual health is seen as sort of an add-on. It's certainly crucial to some of our communities in making the health progress we all want.
Thank you very much. I'm going to suggest that we just move straight on to recommendations now. I can't see any other pressing questions. So on big page number 41, no, that's wrong. Yeah, I've got it. Sorry. Got it. So we've got recommendations on big page number 53 for the reasons set out on the report and its appendices. Cabinet is recommended to approve the commissioning intentions for specialist SRH services set out in the report, agrees that commissioners can pursue direct award of an 8-year contract, 5 years with option year extension periods for the provision of statutory specialist section relationship health services to Barts Health NHS Trust, incumbent provider under direct award procedure C of the provider selection regime 2023 PSR regulations, and waive the contract standing orders as required for award. 2.3, delegate authority to the Director of Adults, Health and Communities in consultation. Sorry, we keep on getting the corporate director title wrong. It's not communities, it's Director of Adults and Health. Sorry, it's Director of Health and Adult Social Care. Could we just get that corrected? And could we just have some quality assurance? It keeps on creeping up. Delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Health and Adult Social Care in consultation with the lead member for Health and Adult Social Care. 2.3.2, and then the final recommendation is 2.4. Note that 2.4.1, the estimated total value of the contract to Newham is in the range of 32 to 36 million over 8 years. And 2.2.4, award of a contract will be subject to each borough's agreement the contract should be awarded. Right, is that agreed?
Good, Chair.
Agreed.
All right, thank you very much. Right, let's move on to the future use of Debden House and campsite. I'm going to be inviting Councillor Zulfikar Ali to talk to this primarily. In the absence of Councillor Sarah Roos, I will be inviting Councillor Madeline Pontin to also talk to this report. Over to you in the first instance.
Thank you, Chair. This, as you write, it's the joint report, and it's concerned the historic site that the council owns in Epping Forest area. And the site is at a unique location and offers potentially the leisure activities which have served our community and visitors alike for many years. Currently, this site is managed by CYPS, Children and Young People Services. Although Debden site is used by some Newham schools, and that is primarily for activities such as camping, I would like to say that the large majority of the business is not from Newham schools or residents. It is primarily used for conferences and leisure camping by a wide range of customers across London and South East, and I'm afraid the use is declining. Just to give you some demonstrators diminishing use, the last session data shows that around 18% of users were only from Newham. So, Chair, we are looking at all our assets, and Debden is one of the major assets we need to look at. And the officers' work on this one demonstrates that Debden neither fits in with the CYPS's education or primary focus on improving children's and young people's education provision, and nor does it have any clear fit with any other council departments or activities. Because the council does not have a specialist leisure services expertise, which are needed in this case, and nor would this be the core function of the council. As many members will know, we do have another site, Fair Play House, and this also sits within Children and Young People Services and is a much clearer fit with the service and its objectives. And this is a dedicated outdoor education centre, which is well used by Newham schools to provide residential outdoor learning opportunities, and we are committed to this as part of our enrichment activities for our children and young people. As the report outlined, the site now faces significant challenges in terms of aging infrastructure, lack of capital investment, and its misalignment with council's core functions, particularly in relation to the children and young people services. We have ongoing financial pressures on the council, and we need to focus our limited resources on delivering key services to our residents it is both prudent and necessary to review our position on our assets, which includes clearly Debden House. In doing so, Chair, you will recall that the proposals agreed by the Cabinet on 15th October included potential sale of Debden House as part of the second tranche, where engagement is to be undertaken. And I'm pleased to say that that engagement process is ongoing, and any feedback from that process will be part of consideration once the engagement sessions are concluded. As I said earlier, Chair, this site has served a useful purpose in the past. It's a legacy, and unfortunately, its continued operation is not sustainable without substantial investment, which is clearly not possible in the current financial climate. And it's also clear that the primary users of the site are not Newham residents, and it is not meeting its cost at this stage. So I would like the Cabinet to carefully consider the option laid out in the report, because we want to make sure that we secure the best outcome for the council as well as our residents. But the proposed sale does offer an opportunity to realize significant capital receipts that can be used to reduce the council debt and safeguard essential services. At the same time, we will continue our commitment, as I said earlier, to Fair Play House, ensuring that our children and young people still have access to valuable outdoor learning experiences. This decision, whilst it's difficult, reflects our duty to manage our assets responsibly and in the best interest of our borough and our residents. At this junction, I will invite Giles to Conrad, if they could explain a bit more in terms of the process, if agreed.
No, you won't, because I'm going to be.
And Madeline, sorry.
Councillor
Madeline,
Madeline, say a few words.
Madeline.
I'll invite officers in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sophie. Fair Play House has a dear place in many people's hearts. However, it was originally set up to service the needs of the Newham population at a previous point in time when needs were different. Currently, the users of the Fair Play House facility, 82% of them come from outside of the borough. So therefore, we are spending Newham. Right, okay. 18% of Newham of the use is by Newham residents and 82% is from non-Newham residents. Yeah. So therefore, we are currently running Fair Play House, running Debden House as a not-for-profit part of the service for Newham residents, and it's not even for Newham residents. I think those are the main arguments at this present time. To make it profitable for Newham residents hasn't been possible for over 20 years. And to invest now to make it something that meets needs, have to undertake a very wide-ranging, in-depth assessment of what it was that Newham residents actually need. But what we're being told by the use by Newham residents is that what we have currently is not what they need. So therefore, we feel that it is better to capitalise on the financial potential of the site to actually plough it back into key and essential services within children and young people's provision.
Qualify that last comment, because it's not a determination for any singular department as to any opportunity or benefit accrued from a disposal of an asset, if that's what we decide to do, that it's restricted to a particular service area. It's not for,
meant generally.
yeah, so it's for the council through its political leadership and through the policy and budget setting process to determine what happens with regards to our money, and obviously with an eye to £175 million forecast budget gap as a consequence of temporary accommodation granted, also children's services and adult social care. We're going to need to fill that gap, and that gap is going to be filled through efficiency, savings, transformation, but also making sure that we're optimising and doing things as it relates to outcomes we want to achieve. But that's fine. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you,
I didn't-
sorry, I
Yeah.
misspoke. I meant more general
Yeah.
services, essential services.
I'm going to now move and invite any relevant officers. And then I'm going to make some concluding remarks. Open up any questions, because I'm quite keen that we move to recommendations.
Yeah, I'm glad, but Giles Clark, the Director of Property, is online, who may wish to add any clarification about the proposed process and is certainly able to take questions from members of the Cabinet and.
Okay, fine. Giles, if you could kindly just provide a summary around process. The point that I wanted to make before you do is I appreciate that this is a well-loved and used in some instances, but as Councillor Sally Pontin has stated, only 18% of our resident population are utilising this beautiful site. Let's not get, let's be under no illusion, it is a gorgeous green space. The process does allow the identification of a number of different options, and it could be the case that it continues to be used for that type of activity, subject to what comes forward through a open, transparent market process. So Giles, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to make the point that you have just made about the openness of the process and the clear possibility that some of the existing uses will remain and be managed by purchasers. The other point to note is that if the recommendation is approved today, the property wouldn't go onto the market until the spring of 2025. This is mainly to allow the summer camping season for next year to continue in the event that there are existing bookings. So they will be able to run its course. And also a process like this isn't something that is necessarily quick, because it is a slightly unusual property, unusual in respect that properties like this don't come onto the market all of the time. So we want to make sure that it is fully exposed to the market, and there is a very thorough process that we will adopt to do that.
Thank you very much. Okay, any questions? Councillor Charlene McLean.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair. Councillor Charlene McLean, Cabinet Member for Resident Engagement and Resident Experience. Apologies, I didn't introduce myself when I spoke previously. Just a couple of points from me. So, as Councillor Ruiz isn't present, and I know that she would say this, so I'm going to say it on her behalf, that in the introduction it says that she's pleased to present this report, and I don't think that she would actually be pleased in that sense to present this report. So I'm making those comments on her behalf in her absence. I know that from the engagement sessions that we've been having with residents, that there's been, people have expressed their dismay that the Debden house and campsite is being sold. So I think it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that. But on listening to the debate and thinking about this as a new resident, that actually this could be quite an exciting opportunity for the site to have another, a new lease of life. There's three parts of it. There's the terrace houses, the campsite, and the actual grade 2, I think it is, listed house itself. But the site was entrusted to us, and actually it's not serving its purpose with us anymore. So, it's only right that it should have its future years being used in a different way. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that I know that it was said that there was 18% of new residents currently using, 82% that are not, which are, when you hear those figures, it makes you think, okay, well, those 18% of people that are new residents that are using the site, it would be good to have an understanding about what they actually use the site for, and if there's any ways that some of the other assets that we have can be, utilised for them. For example, I know that there's the Woodcraft use it. Could they utilise Fair Play House? There are other facilities that we have. So I think that if we explored those sort of things, that actually the heartstrings pulling of, okay, well, you're selling Debden, you're getting rid of our history. Actually, we could move forward and we could all benefit from this. So yeah, that were my comments, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. And I just think for the purposes of today's decision-making meeting, those comments are noted, and as we progress the requisite member oversight and rigour from the relevant cabinet members, those points are taken into account in their discussions with officers, as opposed to having a debate here about those really pertinent points and valued points. So thank you for that. Right, anything else, Giles? No. I'm going to then move to the recommendations as set out on big page number 75. So for the reasons set out in the report and its exempt appendices, Cabinet is recommended to agree 2.1 all the way through to 2.4. And just for Cabinet members only, do we agree?
Agreed, Chair.
Is that agreed? Bill, is that agreed? Emma, is that
Agreed.
Fine. That's agreed by cabinet members here and myself. Thank you very much. Right. Now we're going to be moving to agenda item 10, which is the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park Highway Improvement Projects covering Carpenter's Road, Paul Street and Marshgate Lane. Again, as Councillor Sarah Ruiz, under which Environment and Sustainable Transport comes under in terms of portfolio responsibilities. As a cabinet member, she's absent, so I am going to invite Councillor John Morris to introduce this paper. I'll add a few words as it relates to some of the work that we're doing in our partnership with the LLDC and Carpenter's Estate reference and Carpenter's Road proximity. But over to you, and then we'll go to officers.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Councillor John Morris. I'm the Deputy Cabinet Member of Finance. I'm introducing this item on behalf of the fellow viewers. The Queen Elizabeth Park Highway Project Improvement Project will improve the public highway, the built environment, and enable greater levels of travel through the parks, as well as connecting the greater area with the Stratford area. The LLDC and you have a good working relationship. They learned over the years of delivering some of our major highway improvement projects. One such project is Westfield Avenue Realignment Project, currently in its final stage of delivery. LLDC many occasions expressed their satisfaction in how these works are progressed on site by new highways teams. Recently, they have reapproached them to expand the works of the Olympic Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. These projects will improve the public realm conditions for new residents and its visitors, while enhancing an already impressive cycling connectivity. I also mentioned it will improve connections between Stratford and Olympic Park, which currently is not at its best state. It is in the borough's interest to accept this offer from the LLDC, particularly as visitors and relationship with them, and at the same time, within the park, especially as they are paying for the project.
Okay, thank you very much. And I am going to just add some additional minor, well, not so minor comments. So this is another really significant milestone in the context of how we want to transform Stratford and the neighbourhood in line with Stratford vision into London's first and the modal shift from car driving and having in this part of this global city a livable neighbourhood cannot be underestimated given the significant scale of investment and growth happening in the north of the borough, not least the investments that we're making on our own 28-acre Carpenter's Estate. I think that this will really help aid the connection between Carpenter's Estate and the wider Stratford neighbourhood into the Queen Elizabeth Park in a way that is safe, pleasant, and also encourages the sustainable modalities of walking and cycling, and also will contribute to our 50 steps healthier Newham, and it's a exciting contribution to an exciting vision that we have for this part of our borough. So well done this far. I'm going to move to officers first in case they want to contribute anything, and I wanted to also commend the officers involved for their diligence on this project, Paul and Rex, who are there. So would either of you like to say anything?
Nothing for myself, Chair, just to call that head of service for any onwards. Just one sort of thing to add is with all the relationship with LLDC as they change from what was the planning authority to the elderly practice authority, it's something we want to continue to develop, work with it, and as they still have some role that we really not come here to do. So continue that relationship is really beneficial to us.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Rex, you want to say anything? Are you okay? All right, fine. And welcome to, I think this is your first meeting of Cabinet? Oh, you've been before. I think this might be your third. Yeah. I've been counting. Right, okay. Aled.
Yeah, I'm Alan Richards, Corporate Director of Environment, Sustainable Transport. Just to reassure members, 1.4 million has already been secured from LLDC. There is no financial ask from the authority, and we know from LLDC that there are unspent Section 106 within LLDC, which may well in the future be forwarded to the council in order to have even better schemes in there. So you see the recommendation is delegated to the Cabinet member and myself in order to approve any amendments to the scheme and carry out statutory practical.
Great, thank you very much for that. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to take one question from Neil.
Mine is more a comment, and you've already alluded to it. Paragraph 5.1 and across the page on bottom of page 87 to 88. To stress that, we often look through the lens of highway improvement projects about air quality or about accessibility, but as you've already referenced, it is very consistent with our overriding of commitment, which I've already alluded to about active travel and health. There is, an obvious reference there to the health and wellbeing strategy, and if we can maximise the opportunities to enable active travel, it has a really good impact on the 50 steps programme, and it's there as another outcome as well as a measurable determinant of health.
Yeah, just got to nudge people to walk more.
Sorry?
To nudge people.
Exactly. I mean, it's a sort of providing the infrastructure is one thing. It's about us, with public health messaging for our director as well to work in consultation.
Maybe the journey is to next month's cabinet. Everyone walks home.
Right.
Hint.
Save the frustration of being into this building.
Or you can run. Right, okay, so I couldn't resist. So recommendations as set out, big page number 85. Do we approve the recommendations? 2.1, 2.12, 2.13, all the way to 1.4D. Is that agreed?
Great.
Great, okay, fine. Now let's move on to agenda item 11. I am going to be inviting Councillor John Morris to introduce this one as well in the absence of Councillor Ruiz. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. Following the tender process, the council intends to appoint a charge point operator to install, maintain and manage 320 electric vehicle chargers across for a 15-year contract. So this initiative is partly funded by grants from the Department for Transport Local Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Levy pilot scheme and the on-street residential charge point scheme, covering about 20% of the initial cost, and the CRP financing the remainder. The project aims to increase Newham's total EV chargers from 1,200 by 2025, exceeding the Mayor's commitment to install 1,000 chargers between May 2022 and May 2027, 120 chargers. It also aligns with projections of between 1,100 and 1,600 chargers by 2025 with potential growth to 3,000 by 2030. The council will regulate the EV charging tariffs for a set cost, local and regional standards, and competitive rates and protecting residents from excessive pricing. The project will facilitate the transition to electric vehicles, essential for reducing tailpipe emissions and improving air quality, particularly in Newham, where air pollution poses a significant health. EV charging points may encourage more environmentally responsible public attitudes towards public transport, towards transport among the public, as well as potentially improving air quality in London, which has, as a local authority, has potentially one of the worst air qualities in the entire country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think this is a pretty straightforward Cabinet report. I'm not going to take any questions beyond inviting officers to make any final comments. Aled, actually, I'm going to be, we don't have Richard, but we have Charles. Charles, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to add that this is a great opportunity for Newham. That sets us in a very good place, considering that the deadline for phasing out internal combustion engines is actually approaching. We know the deadline for that to be moved to 2035, but there is a likelihood that it's going to be moved back to 2030 in line with the new government's manifesto. So this is a great opportunity to that's going to set Newham up for the upcoming deadline.
Brilliant. Okay, so another good news story that we need to amplify. Hint, hint. Okay, Aled?
Just to add quickly, this is not using our assets, streetlights. These are all standalone charges. We have 60 streetlights in the borough which are currently used for electric charging. These will be standalone, and there's in the appendix you'll see photographs of them. The next batch it may well be using street columns, but there are some technical issues being encountered across London, and then we'll be looking at whether we actually additionally charge the contractor to use our assets. I have to commend Charles and his team. There was only a handful of electric chargers about 2 years ago. There was a serious risk that we weren't going to achieve a manifesto pledge. We're going to exceed that now, and we are now training people in the team in terms of contract managers in order to deliver and really put the electric charging points programme on steroids. So we hope to be one of the best in London in about a year, 2 years. So it's a commendation to the team and all they've achieved in such a short period of time.
Okay, fine, thank you. And the organic healthy equivalent of steroids. That sounds really exciting, and I'm looking forward to having conversations, and no doubt we can get some feedback. Other colleagues that drive electrical cars intermittently, because they obviously cycle and walk as well. Councillor Anne Easter, who doesn't suffer from car range anxiety when it comes to an electrical vehicle. But I'm particularly interested in the infrastructure aspects and what you were saying around income generation, which we need to be exploiting more and more of across all of our public realm assets. Okay, I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to just suggest that we move straight on to recommendations. Our page number 9. Can we just approve the recommendation 2.1 for the reasons set out in the report? And it says, Cabinet is asked to agree that Liberty Charge Limited, trading as B-Leave, be appointed as our preferred charge point operator for this procurement, deliver, operate and maintain 320 electrical vehicle chargers for a 15-year concession period. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
It's all agreed by Cabinet. Thank you very much. Now we're going to quickly move on to the contract award, environment and sustainable transport software. I'm going to be inviting Councillor Miraj Patel to introduce this on behalf of Councillor Sarah Roos, who's absent. And then I'll move swiftly on to officers, and then we'll actually go straight to recommendations to approve. Yeah, go on.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I didn't introduce myself earlier as well. Councillor Miraj Patel, Deputy Cabinet Member for Environment. Environment and Sustainable Transport, EST, in brackets, utilise Causeway's software package, including the Allo back office system, mobile app, Horizons and Mayrise Streetworks back office system, a range of statutory roles to facilitate the provision of services to residents and other professional stakeholders. Software systems that officers use need to be reliable and responsive to changes in legislation and the needs of local businesses and residents. The EST software package has delivered a range of benefits and services in terms of improvements to residents, including instant online checks for bin collection days and real-time updates to residents for fly tipping and litter reports, enabled by the service using mobile technology to remotely update residents without any time delays as a result of having to return to the office and complete manual paperwork, which has been really labour and cost intensive. And essentially this amalgamates the way that we currently do things within this particular service area. Officers have considered the compliant procurement routes available and decided that direct award to Causeway Technology offers the most cost-effective option to deliver their public realm and highway software service to clients. Some of the areas in which this is used is waste services as street cleansing services, park and open spaces, and highways. So I commend this report and happy to take any questions if required.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to just be inviting Faisal or Aled. Do you want to talk about this?
Not much more to add, just to say this is a pivotal in improving the residents' experience. So when they report flight tips or potholes, it goes directly into the back office system and immediately goes to the fleet when they're out on site, so they can improve the speed of collecting flight tips, which is at the moment about 99% for flight tips collected within 24 hours. But this will improve the resident journey, so they know when it's got, they get updates. And we're working with the software provider to improve that.
Okay. For practical human understanding level, does that mean that when I use the app, I don't get a confusing message that says it's been dealt with when it's still there? It will be done immediately. What happens? Because that's been one of an area of our complaints.
The app goes into the system and we are aware of it. What the app has got is still this issue where flight tip has been collected where it hasn't been because it's for some reason. So we're trying to solve that issue. The app is not actually related to Allo, but it goes into the customer interface, and the information does go into the service, but the response we get from the app is still not good enough.
Right, so we're turbocharging the back end through this procurement. It will have I don't know, I don't want to be rude about car makes, models, but 18th century front end, but that's going to be remedied.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right, you're in charge of that and rapidly. Yeah, okay, cool.
I'll just say that I'll work with Mirage, because now that we've got this new system, then we can get the app to speak. It will have someone to speak to now, i.e. the new system rather than the old system that it couldn't speak to.
Oh, right, so the new system, the old, okay, the front facing side will be able to converse better with the back side.
Chair, can I just add that this will save a lot of money as well, because paper-based services obviously are very, very resource intensive. So this will come with cost saving.
Got it. Okay, super. Right, let's just move straight to the recommendations set out on pages 130 and 131. So for the reasons set out in the report, Cabinet is recommended to agree 2.1 and 2.2. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Fine. Before I move on to item 13, I need to jump back sorry, let me correct myself. I need to jump us back. Item 10, the recommendations are on page 85. I need to just get agreement on those again because I missed out 2.5. So on big page number 85, it says for the reasons out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to approve the notes 2.1.1, 2.1.2, 2.1.3, 2.1.4, and 2.1.5. And the 2.1.5 relates grant delegated authority, Director of Environmental Services, and sustainable consultation with the relevant cabinet member to agree project seats, etc. So is that agreed?
Agreed.
Cabinet, that's agreed. Thank you very much. Right, so that's item 10. Now we're going to be moving to agenda item 13, which is the sale of IPv4 addresses. Sorry, IPv4 address range. Over to you, Zulfikar.
Thank you, Chair. And as you rightly said earlier, that we are facing unprecedented financial challenges. That means that we need to look at everything what we do. Officers of the council are everything in that fashion and also not leaving any stone unturned. Proposals contained in this report are an example of what we're doing. This is an IT asset which has become of exceptional value and is surplus to requirement. And IPv4 address, the technical people probably know it simply is the way that we access internet. And there are billions of people across the world are using it. So the IPv4 addresses are in much more demand at the moment. So people are buying them, selling them, leasing them, etc. So there is a good financial return we expect as a result of that process. And I believe that we have 65,000 or so IPv addresses which could be sold. And if we are successful in selling those through a brokerage arrangement, this will generate between 1.6 to 2 million pounds. And Lauren White, who is the AD for Information Insurance and Contract, is here to deal with any technical issues. But I'm told that the brokerage will probably be given about 6 months or so to make sure that these assets are sold. Ideally, we would like to sell them as quickly as possible, and preferably if this year, if possible, so that we can include this as part of the saving process. So without any further ado, I'll ask Lauren if there's anything that she would like to add.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. So Lauren White, Assistant Director for Information Insurance and Contracts. Just to say that this is a highly valuable asset that we are looking to sell. We have 6 brokers interested in making the sale for us. The evaluation closes within 2 weeks. 2 have already submitted their bids for that in order to help us with that process as well. And I am very confident that great capital.
Super, thank you very much. Okay, fine. I think the report's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not sure if anyone really wants to ask a question on IPv4 address range matters. But I think it's really welcomed that we're doing it because it's actually quite an interesting reflection of modern life. We've got to clean up our digital footprint, both personally and institutionally, and it's quite easy for things to just, over the years, pile up, and we don't know what we own or issues relating to our digital footprint being out there, and it's part of healthy sort of maintenance, I guess. So can we just agree the recommendations as set out on big page number 140? Those are Cabinet is recommended to agree, delegate note 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Now, the final paper, jump on to just noting the exempt items. Item number 14, I mean, managed service for temporary agency resource. So, Zulfikar, this is you, and then I'll invite Gordon to speak.
Thank you, Chair. We currently have an existing agreement with Matrix, and thanks to Gordon, since his arrival, he's gone through a procurement process. We got competitive bids, and the report here recommends moving the temporary staff to Adecco. Adecco is a well-known, well-utilized temporary staff agency provider. And can I say that we are doing reasonably well in terms of reducing the need for temporary staff, clearly as part of the management control and governance control that we put in place. Numbers are declining, but there's always going to be some need for professional technical staff based on the local needs to meet the peaks and troughs of the workload, etc. But the position from procurement perspective is that the new supplier is going to be cheaper than the incumbent, and as the report highlights, the £230,000 is being saved as part of the process, and this is based on the numbers that we are utilizing at the moment. But based, the discussion that we're having and the commitment to reduce the temporary staff is going to lead to even further reduction. So it is proposed that we award the contract to through the matrix MSDIR4 London collaboration contract to Adecco for a period of initial 2 years, the option to extend it further 4 years, subject to they meeting the necessary KPIs, performance targets, and delivery targets. Gordon, is there anything else you wish to add?
Thank you. There's nothing particular I want to add. I'll just pass to my colleague, Yoni, who's probably done a lot more of the hard work than I have on this.
I'm Yoni Jackson, Head of Talent, and not only have we looked at the financial benefits, but also the social value benefits, and in particular, how we're going to education, employment or training, those with special educational needs backgrounds, those with care experience into work, and we'll be engaging with around the service level agreement, looking at monitoring how they put residents into sustainable employment. So there are benefits for our residents as we move forward.
Thank you very much for that. May I just ask, on the back of that statement, how much work and conversation has been had with our Newham team who are working around mobilising those hard to reach cohorts and young people with regards to access to jobs, etc., because it's not come across my radar as yet in my conversations with officers there, because I've been really interested in understanding the thinking and the way in which that's going to be managed on part of the resources department and HR, because it just strikes me there's a bit of a disconnect, and I want assurances that there's greater working by the One Council approach on this, because there are outcomes and targets set out in the corporate plan vis-a-vis the number of young people that we engage, and also there's issues relating to the experience of those with special educational needs and those with disabilities in the workplace. I want to have really, really robust assurances around that. So, I would welcome some commentary, Gordon, but I would suggest that outside of this meeting, I meet with you and Darren Mackett to discuss with Sulfrica.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, I think there's two aspects. One is subject to a decision, we can sit down with the DECO once the contract's awarded and properly planned, telling them value over this.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on in the mobilising in response to skills need, but also what are young people in different marginalised cohorts into the labour market. But I just don't have a sense that it's sufficiently connected. So I think it warrants a fuller conversation. Yeah. Dawn, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just the last point. I think picking up Councillor Adams' point around the agency work, we have a number of really different parts of the market, but if we can maximise getting our candidates, including marginalised areas. etc.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you very much. I'm going to suggest can we move to, sorry, did you want to ask a question?
Well, it follows up from that discussion. On page 155, there's reference to the EQIA that was originally completed on behalf of the London collaboration contract. And it lists the groups that we've already made reference to, including care leavers that we've now got an equalities commitment to at this council, but also the long-term unemployed, those not in education and training, refugees, asylum seekers, homeless people, ex-offenders, people who've left the armed forces, etc. There's also, I think, a need for us to re-examine this in the context that the chair was alluding to, in terms of both local community work building through local employment for all of those groups, but also to tackle some of our shortages within the care sector, both at children's and adults. So I think it's one council approach, and about the equalities impact assessment coming back with a sort of newer-mised approach, if that makes sense. Not here, but in other places. Does that make sense where I'm going?
No, it totally does, and I think it's just really that one council approach and mobilising our community wealth building, because fundamentally that's what it needs to be about. And what we're saying is, in this instance, we want to give prominence around potential benefit and routes into the labour market for specific marginalised cohorts in conformity and in alignment with our qualities objectives. And I'm not simply talking about the Equalities Act duty, but a more ambitious administration equity purpose. Okay, fine. So is that all understood? And let's go to the recommendations set out on big page number 148. 2.1, for the reasons set out in the report, it recommended that Cabinet agree to award a contract to Adecco UK Limited for the supply of temporary workers from 14th of March 2025 for a period of 2 years, with the option to extend a further 2 years and 2 years after, subject to Adecco achieving satisfactory performance. I mean, I don't really like the word satisfactory because that sounds and suggests a bit suboptimal. I mean, I would expect excellent performance, given that we're paying them.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Can we change that word to excellent performance? Is that noted, Joy?
Yes, yeah.
Right, do we agree?
I would rather say on the achievement of agreed targets, which ought to be stretching, basically.
Okay, so I'm going to change this to subject to Adecco achieving excellent performance in line with agreed targets, outcomes and targets. Did you get that, Joy? Okay, thank you very much. Cabinet members, is that agreed?
Agreed.
All right, thank you very much. That's agreed. Now, before we move on to concluding today's session, I wanted to just advise that on item 15, exclusion of press and public, we have got to just note some of the exempt appendices. So can I just reference them? And then I'm going to invite Cabinet members to agree that these items are exempt. So Cabinet are asked to note the resolution to exclude the press and public. However, as it was not necessary the detail of the exempt information provided, we have not been needing to exclude the press and public. And we do, however, need to note them. So I just wanted to formally note item 16, which is exempt, the following exempt items: item 16, item 17, item 18, item 19, and item 20. Can I ask Cabinet members that we note these exempt appendices, which have been discussed and the recommendations have been already agreed?
Agreed.
Is that noted and agreed?
Noted and agreed.
All right, thank you very much. That's noted and agreed, Joy. Colleagues, before we conclude, I just wanted to remind colleagues that we're going to be marking Remembrance Sunday this weekend, and we have the main Remembrance Sunday at East Ham Senator. in Central Park, and the service commences at 10:55. And guests are encouraged to arrive and assemble at 10:45 outside the town. Oh, no, in Central Park. And prior to that, we'll be walking as part of the Remembrance Sunday parade from East Town Hall. There are, however, other Remembrance Sunday events across the borough. So we have one at the All Saints West Ham Parish Church. We have one at St Luke's War Memorial in Canning Town. We have the service at St Mark's Memorial, Factory Road in North Woolwich, alongside the one at the East Ham Senator. So I know that cabinet members and executive members have been assigned particular services to go to, and I look forward to seeing those that will be attending with me at the East Ham Central Park Senator. But also for those members of the public that are watching, please do attend. It's important that we mark and remember all those that died for our freedoms and never forget, but also keep in the spirit of peace and unity the call for peoples across the globe coming together in an age of conflict and war. And obviously today it's a big day in the United States of America, and I know what I would like to see as the outcome. So come on, Kamala. Let's make sure she wins. Anyway, right. Let's go. Yes, you can. On that note, thank you very much, colleagues, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the next formal meeting of Cabinet next month. Okay.
Look at the sign.